Welcome, Darcia.
Thank you. Good to
Today,
be with you.
I can't wait to talk to you today about the book that started it all. For those of you who don't know, this is Darcia's book that won the William James Book Award from the American Psychological Association in 2014. And we're here to celebrate the 10th anniversary of this book, which we have been unpacking for the last 5 years at the Evolved Nest Initiative. The title is The Neurobiology and Development of Human Morality, and the subtitle is Evolution, Culture, and Wisdom.
Writing that book was like juggling elephants, I tell you. Multiple disciplines and how to make it readable.
This is a rare book, and this is something for everyone to understand how very special this book is as a transdisciplinary act of scholarship, which is rare, and that you actually did win an award for the book, multiple awards, actually, including the Age of Reason Award from the Vatican. So,
yeah, the Expanded Reason Award. Yeah, the inaugural Expanded Reason Award for research. Yeah.
So tell us and go into why is this so special, and then I want to hear about what prompted you to put this book together and juggle those elephants.
So this book, as I said, took me a while to write because of I was trying to integrate multiple sciences and the kind of our lived experience on the planet Earth. And it is unique because usually scientists stick to their own silos, their own little, ponds. And I'm trying to, say, hey, I'm above all the ponds looking at, hey, we got to pull this together and figure out what's going on. What happened to humanity? Why are we so destructive? My goodness. And so that's kind of the driver and personal experience as well as to why to focus on this.
So you said you didn't intend to write the book, though.
I didn't intend to write the book that came out. I intended to talk about morality in general and the neurobiological underpinnings of it. But the book itself had a mind of its own, which that's what books do when you follow the muse or the spirit of that's guiding you in writing or creating. And that book wanted to or directed me to the importance of our ancestry, our indigenous First Nation people's worldview, and how they live to be, part of the Earth community as partners, not dominators. And that's all linked to the Evolved Nest. How you become a partner is you have partnership from the beginning, companionship, and then it shapes your human nature in a way of partnership, of companionship. Instead of what we have now, we have a lot of disconnected babies and children and adults because they didn't get what I call the Evolved Nest now.
So when you put this book together, and it kind of, as you were saying, emerged the way it wanted to emerge, you did have a couple of hurdles in getting it out in the form you wanted to get it out. What were those hurdles? What didn't make it into the book, and what did?
Well, the Evolved Nest is kind of a challenging concept to the adults who have been, told by scientific experiments that doesn't matter too much what you do to a baby. They're resilient. It's genetic anyway, how they turn out. Parents don't matter that much. And so they followed the advice of parent experts, so-called experts, who told them, yeah, sleep training's fine. Oh, breastfeeding doesn't matter so much. Oh, play. No, they should learn to read when they're babies, all this stuff. That's actually counter to how humans develop. And I had a chapter, I had some kind of critical things to say about birth practices, about infant circumcision, highly traumatic for a lifetime, breastfeeding. And the editor didn't want me to talk about those things because I wasn't a medical doctor, even though I was talking about the psychological effects. So I find that in general that um, female publishers and editors don't like to hear too much about the evolved nest. I've been criticized in my international talks by Westerners for telling parents, for telling them what? And they'll yell at me or accuse me of being a Nazi for saying, giving them evidence that touch really matters for babies and young children, or breastfeeding matters. That's not what the global South reaction is. They say, oh, yeah, thank you for the science behind what we do normally and what we've always done.
That piece is so critical for what we're talking about now in the Evolved Nest Initiative, which this book is the foundation for, that we're, as a nation, at the bottom of 193 developed nations and wellness. And I would like for you to just to spend a minute in talking about this piece again, because we're talking about transdisciplinary studies. We're talking about moving away from that rational reductionism of Western thinking that keeps us kind of, I say, the hamster in the hamster wheel, if people know what those are anymore, but going around and around. How, maybe this question is too big and broad, but it seems to be our challenge is to get people to see the culture and to see how the culture is not, they kind of feel it. I think we see the evidence for it and being at the bottom of all of these wellness rankings, see the evidence for it. But to see the culture itself, it needs to be a wellness culture, a wisdom-based culture, as we like to say. It's kind of a big order to ask.
Yeah, and we have multiply traumatized adults now in charge, and they learn to shut down their spirit, their heart, their intuitions, and don't have a lot of know-how for living well because they didn't have enough personal experience in doing that. And so it's a way the evolved nest is a way to challenge their worldview that, neurobiology matters. You mean we're biological creatures, we're animals, and we have something to learn from the other animals? Oh no, that's scary. The Western wisdom traditions, which I talk about in the book, one of the distinctivenesses between indigenous wisdom, or primal wisdom is what I called it, and the Western wisdom traditions is about animal nature. In the Western wisdom traditions, oh my God, animal nature, you gotta suppress that, kill it, whatever, exterminate it, that's terrible stuff, it's evil. Whereas in the primal wisdom or indigenous worldview, that's what you want to honor. That's who you are deep down. You're a partner with all the other animals, and that's a very intelligent set of intuitions, practices that is our animal mind. It's what keeps us alive, as we're wandering the forest, for example. So it's really hard for the moderns to take this up because we've had centuries now telling us that to be a moral person, you just have to think correctly, reason like a philosopher, and then apply it in your life with your will. And then you're a moral person. Doesn't matter how things turn out, as long as you have the right intention. This is the illusion of the left hemisphere, the left brain just thinks it can make up stuff in its ivory tower thinking, and then, apply it in the world, irrelevant of consequences, really, because the left brain doesn't pick up on that, doesn't pick up on dynamism, on the flow of relationships and the, developmental shifts and the nuances. It just likes to categorize and imprint its way through the world. And that's what's dominating us now. And most adults have spent in the Western world or Westernized context, have spent their schooling and their work lives in this mode primarily. It's not a wise mode. It's not intelligent. It's just a way to survive in the world that the capitalism and hierarchical civilization, globalization has created to, it's an enslavement system essentially. And so people can't get out of it. It's so hard. And you have to have some kind of trauma that starts to crack that egg, as Joe Pierce talked about. The egg is surrounding you, and you're in this thing, and you don't know, any better, right? Until there's a crack, you have some sudden experience of enlightenment, and then hopefully more cracks, and you break that egg. So that's what the Evolved Nest is trying to do, and our work together is trying to get people to wake up, to snap out of it, and then start to heal, together to envision a future that's regenerative instead of destructive and consumptive, of life in general.
Well, you mentioned trauma and the traumatized mind, and it does seem with the trauma-informed movement picking up in schools and court systems, and our partners at PACES are doing fantastic work with getting information out there about positive and adverse childhood experiences. But the focus is so on trauma. We're still not looking at well-being and wisdom-informed and wellness-informed worldview. How is that? How is it that this book, I know it kicked it off, and I just keep referring back to it because it's all right here. This is where it all begins, including some really wonderful charts and graphs. And my book is all dog-eared and marked up over the years. But it seems like we're not, as you say, if we're not going to left brain our way into wellness, how do we get there? And this trauma-informed movement is giving us a little bit of a, people are like, oh, wait, is this all there is? Wait, what is wellness then? That's kind of helping turn the attention our way.
Yeah, so being trauma informed is important, and the practices to try not to trigger people, in the workplace or at school, that's vital. But you have to understand, how did we get so many traumatized people so easily triggered, right? And how do we get away from that? You have to have a wellness informed understanding of our species normal, species typical way of raising humans to be flourishing, to be well, to be connected. And that's where the Breaking the Cycle film that we've created talks about the distinction between the pattern we're in now, the cycle of competitive detachment, with the species normal way of being for 99% of our existence, which is the cycle of cooperative companionship. And so people need to know what that looks like. And that's where another film, the Reimagining Humanity film that we've created, gives a vision of how, what species normal is flourishing. It's like happiness, not misery, not abuse, not, just feeling oppressed all the time. No, it's about honoring spirit, honoring the openness of, being together, openness, inclusion to the diversity that faces us every day. Every moment is a different moment. But the left brain likes to just categorize and then follow a script. The right hemisphere and the integrated brain is able to be flexible and see the uniqueness in each moment, the beauty there, and honor it.
So tell me about this, the Evolved Nest book that you did with Gay Bradshaw. It is beautiful. It's a beautifully written book. It kind of helps us, I think, and I've heard this from other people, that what you're talking about with the left brain doesn't want to hear about what do we need as humans that we didn't get. But then you with Gay talk about animals and their nestedness and how they're doing it to create nurtured, normalizing nurturing is not ever not been normal for other species. So you kind of speak to that book because I feel like it does come in the side door of our minds and help us ease into this nestedness.
Yeah, so I've been trying to figure out ways to connect people's imagination and their understanding of the evolved nest in ways that are not so threatening, right? And so this book is intended to be less threatening because you look at beavers and elephants and bears and wolves, and look how they nurture their young, in the different aspects of the evolved nest. And that makes you start to realize, oh, that really matters because we include neuroscientific information about why a particular practice is important. And then we relate it to human practices. And I think it allows people to kind of enter into the arena of the evolved nest, the worldview of the evolved nest without feeling so, I guess, defensive.
Yes, defensive. And the film is beautiful and has lots of beautiful animal nurturing, otter laying on its back, hugging its baby, and even octopuses, though, in the book, talking about octopuses and the amazing intelligence and how that intelligence is preserved and passed on through the nestedness. Um,
Yes.
that's the wisdom piece of this subtitle that I am always so fascinated by.
Yeah, the wisdom is something that we can all tap into when we get caught up in our own thinking, which our culture encourages us to, train our thinking mind. That's really not the source of intelligence. Intelligence is coming from outside. We are in a dynamic, flowing system. And David Bohm pointed out, the physicist, that inside intelligence comes from outside, but you have to have your heart and your signaling system ready to receive it. And that's the Western wisdom traditions were aware of that. You have to let go of fear, let go of ego. You have to be in a state of receptivity, a state of love, and then you can get all the signals coming in. But what we do with trauma is we layer on wound after wound after wound on that baby, on that child, on the teen, on the adult. And then it's really hard to unpack all that. You have to peel off all those wounds and let them go, not hang on to them with resentment and even hate. And so that takes some time, unless maybe you take psychedelics or something, and then bing, you have some transformation. But even that might not last unless you're surrounded in a nested community where people really do appreciate you and your beauty and your uniqueness can unfold. And that's what we're supposed to be doing in a nested context with the cosmos. So our nestedness is not only this developmental nestedness, which is what we focused on a lot at the Evolved Nest, where you're providing soothing perinatal experiences, breastfeeding for several years, a welcoming social climate, self-directed play, free play, multiple adult caregivers who are responsive, nature, immersion and connection, and routine healing practices. So that's kind of developmental. Only the first two are really for the young children only. The rest of them we all need throughout life. And that's, kind of the communal nestedness. But we also need to feel nested with the cosmos. We need to feel connected that the universe is with us and we have a purpose here, and to let the flow of that universal love come through our actions and our thoughts and our feelings. And we need to be rooted in the earth, that the systems and the cycles and the, honoring the landscapes, the animals, the plants around us is part of our nestedness too. So I call that a vertical nestedness. We also need the horizontal nestedness, which is honoring the ancestors, all that wisdom that they had, and that's where the evolved nest is, part of that wisdom. And then future generations, and then honoring our connectedness to all living beings right now. And that's the horizontal nestedness.
So the main points in the book you're kind of hit on. Is there anything else that you would like to let people know what they can find in the book?
You asked me earlier, how did I come to write the book? And so that was something that kind of was a haunting that I had all my life, was what's wrong with the world. and why are children mistreated? I spent half my childhood outside the United States, and then so we'd go away for a year and come back for two, and go away for a year and come back for two, and could not understand what was wrong. And it took me a few careers to get back to that question, and I tried to find it in different ways. But I went to graduate school, and first went to seminary because I was looking for the answers there. Maybe theology has the answer. What's wrong? Uh, and in my first class, we had a small group class, and the professor really liked the little paper I'd written and said, "Oh, why don't you talk about it?" I froze. I could not speak because I'd grown up in a household where my dad insisted that you speak perfectly before you open your mouth in Spanish or English. And I just froze. It's the freeze state, and could not talk. So I wondered, as I studied and learned about morality more, the Western philosophy, saying, just make a decision and then you will carry it out, like I was saying earlier. But I couldn't even act. I couldn't move, right? I was just frozen in place like a deer in the headlights. And so, what's wrong? And that's where I got interested in neurobiology, to figure out what went wrong there, and how morality is much more than just thinking in your head, right? It comes from the bottom up. It's how well your systems are coordinated, and whether you're able to be in the present moment, flexible, attuned, or not. Or are you into your bracing mode against the others, fearful, and you shrink away, or you dominate, right? So self-protectionism. So these are the things in the book. And then how important it is how to heal. The longest chapter in the book took me another year to write, because my friends who read the manuscript said, without that chapter, they said, "Oh, now what do we do?" Because they read about what happens when we don't provide the early nest. And so I spent a year on that, what to do. You have to learn to calm yourself, because that's the survival systems of the brain that have been activated from being undercared for, being left to cry, being left alone, sleeping alone, all that stuff, which is abnormal for our species. And then you learn to calm yourself, but that's not enough either, because you didn't get enough of that back and forth social experience. And so you've got to do that, build those skills again. And that's right hemisphere stuff, which you can grow throughout your life from in the moment social play of one kind or another. It can be dancing, drawing. We did folk song games in my classes, where you are in the moment and you're holding hands and you're singing and you're laughing and you're acting, you're moving your body. It's so much fun. And you can relax into the moment to just enjoy the game, because there's structure there, you know what's going to happen, and so on. And then that's not enough to have that social joy experience. You have to expand your imagination now, because it's been shrunk down from, your fearfulness. And so you have to learn to empathize with others and learn to accept diversity by learning about other people's experiences, by having friendships that broaden your notions of what it means to be a human being. So all that's in the book. And again, it goes back then in the end to the indigenous worldview, primal wisdom, which is also being deeply connected to your place on the earth, your landscape, to honor, to respect the animals, plants, the water, to thank the water that you drink every day, and so on.
What do you say when we go out and we're trying to advocate for normalized nurturing, and we run into the two lenses, which is your, polarization of political issues, and then two, guilt of parents that feel like they can't even hear what we're saying because the culture has already primed them to feel guilty about not having their needs met as a parent, but maybe they don't know that.
Well, in terms of the guilt, we're all learning how to restore our compassionate human nature. And so we may not have known it yesterday, but now that we know, we can change our behavior today, and to we have to forgive ourselves if we did things that weren't appropriate, for example, now that we know. And so it's, it's a matter of helping one another recover together. And what was the other question? Well,
I guess what I was thinking, Darcia, is you do have an explanation. You kind of hit on it before about us getting this culture has already primed us to be in our amygdalas and to be defensive and to think that way. And so even approaching nestedness and taking and being aware that we've got this cultural political lens that can make issues into something that is a cultural issue and not a biological issue.
well, I think the evolved nest and indigenous worldview is the original conservatism because it's about maintaining the community into the future. So, Maslow, Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he got that idea from the Blackfoot Nation when he spent some weeks with them, but he kind of got it upside down and a little backwards. So, in their perspective, self-actualization is the beginning. You have to help everyone self-actualize their uniqueness in order, then, this is something Maslow missed, for the community to be self-actualized. And you want that so that the community, the culture of the community, next generations are perpetuated into the future. And so I think the evolved nest is about understanding that we are in a cycle, one cycle or the other. Which cycle do you want to be in? And it doesn't matter what the politics are if you focus on basic needs. And children have these basic needs if they're going to be a full human being, reach their potential. And we need everyone's potential right now to solve all these crises that we've created from the left brain, the self-protectionism that everybody's running around with and just wants a quick, easy answer. And so we're going to do this to you. It's like you get upset with your child and you just spank them because that gives you some relief, even though that has nothing to do with helping the child, right? So we have to get out of that, again, back to self-calming, social connection, imagination that's inclusive. These are conservative values. So I think, and they're also progressive because they're so contrary to our experience.
That was great. Thank you. Yes, that cuts right through that polarized view. And that was what I was really asking for is how do we get past the polarization that just wants to come in and throw us in one heap or another and not listen to the real clear message there. So well, thank you so much for this book. I cannot believe it is 10 years old and we are still unpacking it. I will tell our listeners that we have the introduction and the first chapter up, and wherever you are listening or watching this, we'll put links there so that you can read the introduction and the first chapter to neurobiology and the development of human morality. Is there something else that you would like to share with us, Darcia?
Well, these are also going to be up in Spanish, the introduction and the first chapter, right? So,
okay. All right. Yes, we have a whole Spanish section for you on both the evolvednest.org and kindredmagazine.org and German. There, a lot of the materials are being translated by volunteers, and this has been a real gift to have. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing and you're bringing to us, the films, and I know that there's this really long list that we still have to do with the work that you put into this book. It is just a seminal work, and I'm so grateful to have the opportunity to work with you on bringing it to the world.
Well, thank you, Lisa, for being such a superb partner. I'm glad we're together now and we can do this together.
Me too. Thank you, Darcia.
Welcome. Bye.
Bye.